Tim Cain is a developer who recently released a video asking, do developers know what gamers even want in games? And I think that's a good question. And I want to check out his video to see if he addresses the thing that we know is the elephant in the room, and that is DEI. And we know how that's really hurting games. People are rejecting it at a high level. For those of you who don't know who Tim Cain is, I mean, this is the guy who created, produced, he was the designer, lead programmer for Fallout, the very first one. He laid out the groundwork for what ended up being a massive franchise, okay? And well beloved, of course. He also worked on Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. He worked on Wildstar, Pillars of Eternity, and he's the director for The Outer Worlds, which I really like. So this guy is not David Jaffe. He's not some lefty loony out to lunch going crazy while he crashes out. This guy has actually got it together. Okay, he has a YouTube channel that he posts questions and dev things on that's actually worth listening to, I think. So let's go check it out, and we'll see if he, again, addresses what we really want to see. So let's get to it right after you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.
JayViper is awesome. He's so good looking. He's got the crown in all.
What's up, everybody? It's JayViper, and this is Tim Cain. Let's get to know him. I went forward a little bit on this because in the beginning, he was really just talking about his previous video. So let's start where he actually starts talking about what we want to hear.
Raw, unfiltered response to, do devs know what gamers want? And here it is. No.
Okay, fair.
No, we don't know what you want. We have no idea, seriously, what you want.
That's interesting. That is interesting to me because I feel like people say what they want. Maybe it's a little too broad sometimes, but I feel like people are pretty clear sometimes what they want, and also, of course, what they do not want and do not like. But of course, there's so many voices. It could be
I
difficult.
almost did this as a short. I was just going to do a short and go, do devs know what gamers want? Nope. And then cut it off.
Yeah.
You can stop here. If you want to know why it is we're so absolutely confused about what it is you want.
You know what? I wonder if it's the consultants and all the people upstairs confusing the developers who are probably generally pretty grounded. I do wonder if they get in the way more than they help with, especially like when publishers start talking and like very high up start talking, like in the developer side of things, and really interfering. They're not talking so much, they are interfering.
Because I know some of you are like, it's stupid. We know what you should know what we want. We don't. Here's the longer answer. And it's all kind of can be summed up as because you don't know either. But you got to remember, I'm saying the collective you. I wish English had the collective you. Southern English does. Y'all don't know what you want.
There you go.
Let me dive into that. This is a deep dive on why y'all don't even know what you want, which is why we don't know what to give you. First off, many of you only tell developers what you hate.
For sure.
Great. You said what it is you don't want, but what is it you want?
The opposite.
I have an
usually.
entire video on how to give good feedback, and I'll link it below. But I can just say, when you keep saying, I hate this in games, I hate this feature, I hate these kind of characters and all that, great. What kind of characters do you want? If you
So, okay, so character-wise, like I think a lot of times it's stylization that people really pick apart. And one thing that gets in the way, I think, is people asking for graphical improvements, where I think really what they mean is stylization, which is so bad. Like, let's take Conquered, for example. Like, they had the fidelity in that game where they had details upon details for no reason. It didn't help anything. It was the stylization of those characters was abysmal. Like, the fact that that shipped was just an abomination.
hate sarcastic characters, well, guess what? There's an entire realm of non-sarcastic characters. But what is it you want? Do you want funny characters? Do you want serious characters? Do you want
this is a good
characters with a lot of background? Do you characters that with very little that you don't?
See, I don't think this is a very good example that he's using. I understand what he's doing, but like for the like the deep backgrounds, light backgrounds, these are really like genres we're talking about. Like RPGs are deep, whereas like a FPS is going to be paper thin generally, right? And like sarcasm, all that, like that's just game design. I don't think people dislike sarcastic characters or funny or whatever or need them either. You know what I mean?
Want to spend a time in a wall of
It's
text
about
dialogue.
how you place
What
them and
do
how you use
you
them.
want. That's why you have to tell us what you want and not what you don't want. But wait, there's more.
Oh, there's more.
Even when you say what you want, you're often extraordinarily vague.
Yep.
You will say, I want a better game. I want better AI. I want a
Okay,
better
I don't-
UI.
So AI, I think it's hard to describe sometimes, like when it's just bad AI. Generally, I think like bad AI, I always think of Borderlands and how piss poor the AI is, where really you're just dealing with bullet sponges. And this is the case with even Cyberpunk 2077, especially when it released. I mean, these were just bullet sponge AIs that were just standing there, not really doing anything. Once in a while, they duck behind cover, and then they would just poke up, and they weren't really doing anything. There was no like variety. So anyway, that's my AI thing. I like varied AI where everything like is different. It's like thinking a little bit, where it's like thinking about how to beat you, you know?
Yeah, I'll just slide the better slider from okay to great
Sounds
on all
easy.
of
Do that.
those.
Yes.
I have an entire video on why developers need context to your feedback.
It's understandable.
That's never more truer than when you give feedback. When you give, especially positive feedback. If you don't say what you're talking about, it can be really vague. For example, what is better for you mean in a game? Or when you say, how is that AI bad? What are you talking about? What are they not taking cover? Are they just running straight at you shooting? What do you mean?
It's the running straight at you shooting almost all the time, or just standing there taking the bullets. Not actually interacting with each other in any way, or you kill a guy and the other guy's like, huh? He's not jumping and trying to dive. He's like, huh? My friend right in front of me is dead. A bullet's through his head. I'm gonna stand here and go, huh?
When you say you don't like a UI, what is the friction point in that UI that you're encountering? What is it that's bothering you?
So that UI situation, that can be hard to put your thumb on. I think it's easy to look at a UI and be like, this whole thing's bad. I do think that's a thing where you could just be like, my God, like there's nothing I like about it. It's cumbersome looking or whatever, or it's too big, or it's the colors, the flat. Like, let's talk about the Dragon Age Veilguard UI. It was another abomination. That's the word of the day, abomination. But that thing was atrocious in every shape or form. Not to mention all the other things with that game, but everything was glowing. Everything was just like that little thing that came up was like this big freaking circle that went around. Everything was ugly. Yeah, that whole thing. Like you could just tear that apart and just say, no, this is just bad and it needs to go away. Try something else.
If you just say that UI is dumb, it's not helping. And trust me, it's
might.
not just gamers who do this. I've worked with people who've literally said that out of their mouth. They're like, that looks dumb.
That looks dumb. I
Great.
think sometimes that's fair criticism. If it's a disaster and you're like, the whole thing, just start again. But, if it's pieces or something, I
Wait,
get it.
I'll get right on that.
Context is difficult in UI. It is. It's hard to describe
Sometimes, though,
your issues.
and I've talked about how some UI issues are really an underlying system mechanic issue. This comes up in the videos on encumbrance, where
Okay.
you can have a really good UI if your game supports encumbrance, but you take encumbrance out and suddenly that same UI is terrible because people can carry more. And
Okay.
suddenly there's a lot more things in their inventory. And the
Okay.
UI you were using for a limited inventory doesn't work for a UI.
So he's talking about inventory UI can get really cluttered and disastrous if you don't have encumbrance. I understand.
With an unlimited inventory.
That makes sense.
So that's why you need to be very specific about what it is you didn't like. Do you really hate that UI? Or do you hate that you can vacuum up everything? Or do you want to be able to vacuum up everything, but you just wish the game would somehow
Sort things better.
organize it better?
Yes, organization. Organization, like this is so key. Organization in the UI is so important, especially like in an RPG or anything where you have lots of types of things, crafting material, ammunition, guns, things like that. That's why I like something like Tarkov. Even though it's neat how you place it, it can be also a big pain in the ass. When you go into your stash, you have to manually sort everything. And for a while there, I guess there's a button you can push now, but you couldn't do that, and it could get a little crazy. So
Be
unlimited
specific.
unlimited inventory can get nuts.
Here's the
Sort.
one that really gets me and that many of you refuse to acknowledge. You all, again, I wish English
Y'all?
had a plural.
Just say y'all, bro.
You all do not agree on what a good feature is. Go
Fair.
back and watch both of my encumbrance videos.
No,
They're
fair.
linked below. Or watch the
I bet
video I
people
had
hate it
on
and people
fast
love
travel.
encumbrance.
Or even the video I did on
Fast travel. Fast travel, I mean, these are things where, if fast travel's in the game, right, or an option to not have encumbrances in the game, but those things might be off by default, or you can turn off like fast travel, or you just don't need to use fast travel. I think those things are fine. This satisfies everyone, I think. We have the things in the game, but have them so you can just not use it, or you can toggle it.
providing game difficulty, different
Depends on the game
options in
too,
there.
yeah.
Read the comments on it, which I know a lot of you don't do, and you complain that YouTube doesn't do a good job of sorting them. Just pick
YouTube
one of
does
those
a better job
videos,
now.
set it to show all the comments, and scroll for a few minutes. You will find that some of you literally say you will not play a game that is lacking a particular feature, and then keep scrolling, and you'll find people who hate games that have that feature. And it can be anything. Fast travel, VO, walls of text, story mode. Some of you require it.
In story mode, like people complain about this in Call of Duty. I remember Call of Duty released one time without story mode, no campaign. People lost their minds. And I was like, who cares? Let's be honest. You all play through it once, and they know how many people play it and finish it. And that's a short campaign. I still think it's useless in Call of Duty. That is my personal opinion. I don't care if it's in or out. It can be in, but I don't see it's not necessary. Just give me Medal of Honor. Just bring that back and have that be our story mode battle simulator game, okay? Because they did a great job back in the day. We can
And
get
some
rid
of you
Call
skip
Duty.
games that have it. And you have reasons for doing it. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
What I am saying is there is no possible way to make a game that will make all of you happy.
Yeah, you can't satisfy everybody. That's
What's interesting to me, and this channel has made
most of the time, I think you just have to make the game to fit what you're making, right? And if it fits the genre you're making, you're gonna make the people that buy the game happy. Because you're not gonna make everyone happy. Because FPS gamers, you got freaking like strategy gamers, you got RPG gamers, you got freaking MOBA gamers. They are not all going to agree, and they are very different.
me really acknowledge it. You don't even agree on the fact that all of you are disagreeing.
He is placing
Some of you don't
blame here on
acknowledge
gamers.
there are any other game players out there. There was a video I did where I said people frequently want better graphics, but a lot of you ask for better graphics. And someone said, and I quote, "No one asked for better graphics."
Oh, that's not true.
I guess you never read a review and you don't
Yeah,
go
I
on any
see this all
forum
the
boards.
time.
Because yes, they do. And keep in mind, better graphics,
Mean
sometimes
many
they're
things.
just talking about they want a higher resolution. They bought a 4K monitor and they're upset they're not getting a game in 4K.
Yeah.
Sometimes they want a farther view distance. They're upset that it clips really early. Or that there's always things blocking their view. They don't get a nice wide view of anything. Sometimes they just mean more creature variety or more location variety.
Well, if they mean creatures or locations, that's not graphics. I mean, it is. But when someone says, I want better graphics, I don't think that's what they mean. Then they would be saying, I want more places to go, more planets. There's a big, like with Outlaws, people are like, how many planets? That's it? Like, this is pathetic. And yeah, like creature variety in games is always a big thing. You go from one planet to another, and you see like the same creature reskin. You're like, come on, man. Like these are different planets. Like, cut it out.
These are all better graphics. These are all things that require a lot more art time, a lot more things to be loaded in, a lot better
But I don't count them as
optimization of your engine. These are all going to the category of better graphics. And all of you, I guarantee, have asked for some form of better graphics.
And like I
at
said
some
before, I
point
think
when you're
graphics is generally stylization. Unless something looks really plain, and then people are like, yo, like spice it up with some textures or something, But people do just default, oh, the graphics are bad. It's usually stylization. Like, again, the graphics weren't terrible on Concord. The fidelity was okay. It was the stylization of everything. Just was ugly and made the game look bad, even though they probably put tons of time and textures in that piece of shit.
responding to a question of what did you like and dislike about this game. Now, keep in mind, too, sometimes you guys talk about art style, but everything I just mentioned, even if the art style stays the same, you will need more polys and more textures and more everything just to give you more creature variety or more location variety. So just that means falls under the aegis of better graphics, but
Money.
means more work, more artists, more time, more money.
See, he's thinking this as a developer, the whole graphics thing. When someone says graphics, I really don't
And
think they mean more locations.
Many of
They
you
would
say, well, I don't really care about graphics. I'm one of you. Graphics have never been high on my list of what I care about in a
Yeah,
game.
it's not needed.
But
Give me a
many,
good game.
many, many
looks nice.
players are attracted to a game by its pretty graphics, even if
It's
they
true.
stay afterwards because the gameplay is so good. Pretty graphics open the door.
No, see, this is true. It's the graphics stylization opens the door. People get in, and the gameplay and all the other things he was talking about before will decide if they stay.
I've told some designers under me, sometimes it's like dating.
He's
Your
not,
head may be turned by the prettiness.
He's not talking about DEI at all. He's like, yeah, he's not going to approach.
But you stay
Well, we
because
have
of the
some time left.
personality and the chemistry. So it's like that with games. Make a pretty game, more people will at least get their eyeballs on your game. Then they're stay because of the mechanics. And then later on they're deny ever even looking at your game because it was pretty. One of the things I want to point out is many of you argue against things that would make a game that even tries to provide more things for more players. And I've talked about how design by committee is bad, which I agree with. And usually that leads to making a game that's so bland and vanilla
Yes.
that no one can really have
Saying it without
an
saying
argument against it, but nobody really feels like playing it. What I mean by that is many of you literally have argued that games should have fewer game options. I'm not even talking about game difficulty, just fewer game options. I have a video on game options. I'll link it below. Again, read those comments.
So I think consoles do this a lot. Like you'll see games dual release, right, to PC and console. And console, you go in, there's like almost nothing to choose. It's just like play the game, and I think that's good for the people on console because it narrows things down. It's a little easier, just like a jump on play type of thing. But I have started seeing things like on console where it's like where it decides the graphics, if you can run optimized or if you run balanced, and I find that surprising, honestly.
Many of you are going, yeah, I hate when games have a lot of options. I don't know what to set. The
does that
designer
even
should
mean?
have decided that. Why?
Oh, they talking about graphic options? Because I'll be honest, like that can be really confusing. Like if someone doesn't know what occlusion is or whatever, however the hell you say it, the bloom and all these things, like yeah, I think that can get confusing. But you need to have those settings.
Why are they making me do that? That just means they didn't have a strong vision. Not ignoring for the fact that many of those options are there to let more people play the game. I'm colorblind.
Accessibility.
That's a disability. There are games I literally cannot play.
So we're talking about accessibility options. It can get a little out of hand when you first fire up a game. You're like spending 5 minutes trying to see if you need anything because you're like, what the hell is a screen? And sometimes they have things default on, like the talking, the menu chat, the menu speech. Oh, I hate it. It's always the worst voice too.
Because they have puzzles
But I get
or
why it's-
information that I'm supposed to pick up on that's color-based, but there are no color blindness options. The worst ones of
don't see
these
that
are
much.
ones that don't say up front that they do that. And then later I'm playing the game and I realize I'm playing it wrong, or I've encountered puzzles that I literally cannot solve, and there's no option to do so. Super frustrating.
That would be
So let me-
frustrating. I understand the accessibility options, but it can be a lot. Sometimes you fire it up, you're like, what?
Sum
It's
up.
like it's like reading a legal document that you've been handed. You're like trying to make sense of all of it.
Because I've been ranting for a while. I get that you, the individual, want what you, the individual, want. But you have to realize that you, the individual, are not very good at giving developers feedback. And that you, the individual, are not everybody the game's being made for. Many of you aren't even in the majority. And I hear you. I don't think I'm in the majority. I like a lot of niche games. I've made a lot of niche games. And so that's kind of what I'm saying here is game development is hard on its own, technically. But this lack of consensus among game players about what they want takes that difficulty to a whole new level. It's that much harder to make a game that you want to be popular, that you want to have a lot of sales, because most of you don't know what you want. Those of you that do know what you want are very vague at expressing it.
I don't think he's right about the whole you don't know what you want. I think people do. I think a lot of what people want is what they don't want and have been very clear about. Like he's not hitting the DAI. The reason I feel like he's making this video is because of some of the major box office bombs that we've seen. Suicide Squad, Dragon Age, Outlaws. These are bombs. These did not come close to their marks. They're shutting down Suicide Squad production. They're not even going to finish out the season. Dragon Age is pathetic. They haven't even announced 1 million. They probably are over 1 million, but they're not at 2. And that's a huge shortcoming, okay? Outlaws, we already know that thing chucked out at 1 million, and it's pathetic on Steam. No one bought it. No one's playing it. So, DEI really drives the truck right now. And I feel like he's just kind of avoiding that. I mean, I understand why he doesn't want to say it. He's still making games. But that is a big one, man. If you want people to buy your stuff, do the opposite of what freaking people like Sweet Baby Inc. are telling you to do, and you will have a much better shot at making a big game.
And many of you don't realize that what you want isn't what a lot of other people want. This is why, for most of my career, I just made what I wanted, what I liked. I hoped other people would like it.
It did.
But it was me and the team just trying to make something we'd like that would make each other laugh, make each other have fun. And we were like, gee, I hope people like this. We weren't sure. We didn't care. And when marketing would ask us questions like, what's the demographic for your game? We didn't know. We didn't have an answer. And most of us, we didn't even care. We're like, yeah, I don't know.
Exactly.
Why don't you go home and play the game and tell me what you think?
So this is just a talented dude with people that were talented around him. They do how to make games and make things fun. And his games, I mean, I listed them off. They were extremely successful. This guy knows how to make games. So he's making this video. I'm a little confused. I feel like the confusion, again, comes from upstairs.
Who would like it?
And from consultancy firms.
Many of you like my earlier games. Maybe it's because I did make them in a vacuum like that, and I wasn't thinking what people thought.
It's probably the best way to make them.
However, I can tell you, my later games sold more copies. So what's the right path? I don't know. But I can tell you this. Do game developers know what game players want? No, we don't.
True. Oh, the end. All right. Yeah, everybody. So that's a good video. I really liked it. I subscribed to him already. Liked the video. But yeah, it's Timothy Cain. Definitely check him out. I think he is a good source. He's basically your anti-Jaffe. I mean, this guy's, talking to us and telling us how he's thinking and how basically his thought process of things, which is you can see like the way he speaks, he thinks like a developer. But I will say like a little bit of that was like pressed on gamers, like you're not telling us what you want, which is why games are being made badly. I feel like that's what he's driving at, these massive failures. But again, we are saying what we want. And for some reason, these DEI companies, Sweet Baby Inc., and all the others that are just grifting and have created positions that they basically have threatened companies with, to hire them. Let's be honest, that's how they get any money. And the fact that Sweet Baby Inc. still has 30 irons in the fire, and they're working with people still, is just word of the day, an abomination for gaming. And we're not going to move forward. And his questions will continue to be questions, because I do feel like the confusion comes from upstairs. Even though us, the gamers, I'm sure there's plenty of us who aren't very clear about what we want, don't know how to give good feedback, and can make things confusing. But I promise you, if you talk to people who have an iota of personality and know how to speak to people, that you will get the information you want, Tim. So, feel free to reach out anytime. Tim Cain, okay? That's an open invitation. But for sure, awesome channel, though. I think this is good. This is like the anti-Jaffe, okay? This guy's actually just open to talk. It's exactly what we need from developers. So anyway, that's all I have for you today. I think this was really good. Let me know what you thought of this video and this style. And if you do like the video, don't forget to like it, okay? And then subscribe to this channel, and then hit that notification bell so I can see you on the next one. Love you, minute pieces. Bye, everybody.
Owning every game.